Hello, my creeplings. In honor of Jon Carpenter finally getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, I thought I'd go over one of my favorite. This one and The Thing always jog for first place. Jon Carpenter film from 1988. We're talking about They Live. This one has definitely worked its way into the pop culture lexicon. A lot of people quote this and don't even realize they're quoting this sometimes. This has been parodied and bits of it have been borrowed even by South Park. So, again, like I said, They Live, science fiction horror, written or directed by Jon Carpenter with a screenplay by Jon Carpenter based on a short story called 8 O'Clock in the Morning by Ray Nelson. Now, Jon Carpenter did not use his real name for writing credit. He chose the pseudonym Richard Armitage. So if you're watching the opening credits and you're a little confused, that's why. He also did the music for this. Released November 4th, 1988. Definitely made its budget back. And like I said, this has become such an iconic movie of the 80s. The cast has got Roddy Piper, the wrestler from the height of the rock and wrestling movement of the back then called the WWF, now called the WWE. He plays our main character, goes by the name of Nada. Keith David, so he's returning from The Thing. He has done a lot of voice work. Dr. Facilier from Princess and the Frog, Goliath from Disney's Gargoyles. I believe he's done a comedy turn or two. One of them was something about Mary. The man's been in so much and has such a distinctive voice. God, I love him. He plays, our second main character, Frank Armitage. So he used his pen name as a character's name. So don't get confused there, because I almost did. We have the iconic Meg Foster as one of our characters, Holly Thompson. Now, Meg Foster has pretty much been, if not full-on retired, semi-retired since I believe the early 2000s. But you Gen Xers and young millennials, I think we're calling ourselves Generation Goonie now. I just read, the 1970 to 1985ers. We definitely remember Meg Foster because Meg Foster showed up in a lot of cheesy sci-fi and low-budget stuff. A lot of television stuff. She played Hera on Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. She played Evil Lynn in the Dolph Lundgren fronted Masters of the Universe. She's done so much. She has a very distinctive look. Usually, her hair is very, very red, and she has got these eyes that are like a steel, crystal gray blue. They're so unique. They're so light. They're just hypnotizing, which I think is part of the reason why she worked so much in sci-fi. I believe there's a quote that she says, why, you don't need to give me contacts. My eyes are my own special feature. I'm probably butchering that quote, but she said something along the lines of that to an interviewer once. And she's a very solid actress, too. So seeing her in this is a treat. I don't recognize any other names other than possibly George Buck. He's one of the collaborators. I have seen him before, but I cannot remember where. So, we start out in a dystopian version of 1988. So a little bit of background for those of you youngins, and those of you who were adults, mind you, I was 8 years old at this time. So I didn't understand the whole thing at the time, but now that I'm an adult and have, done my due diligence in researching, but please correct me if I'm wrong here. But during the 80s, this was Reagan's presidential era. And Reagan believed in, or was convinced to believe in, what was called trickle-down economics, where if you put all the money at the top, it would trickle down to the bottom. Y'all are going to really start questioning things that are happening today, once you've watched this movie. So, at the time, the middle class was slowly shrinking. We couldn't have, a stay-at-home parent and a working parent. This is where my era comes in. Us latchkey kids, us Generation Goonie kids. A lot of us didn't have two parents at home at all times. It wasn't just, for example, the classic nuclear family where dad worked and mom stayed home and took care of the kids. Both mom and dad were working. Mom might have only been working a part-time job, or you had dad working thirds, mom working while you were at school, and if you were lucky, you saw both of them in the afternoon, because things were financially getting hard. It was almost like another depression. A lot of times you would have shanty towns and homeless camps show up, and they were called Reaganvilles. This takes place at the beginning with this type of character. Nada is a working man who is drifting like the hobos of the 30s and during the Depression, looking for work. And it seems like a lot of people, if you are not yuppie ass rich, you are, traveling around trying to find work poor. Not much of a middle class anymore. Kind of like what's happening today. But yeah, so trickle-down economics didn't work, and this is kind of an extreme version of all of what was going on politically and economically at the time. So, you have Nada, who is obviously a drifter. He's got his life on his back, in his backpack. He ends up coming into town, looking for a job. They're like, there's nothing for you at unemployment. He manages to get a job at a construction site. And since he's currently homeless, because he just got into town, he is befriended. They're not really on friendly terms at first by Frank Armitage, the Keith David character. He's like, hey, if you have no place to go, there's this place. They have showers and hot food. So, of course, Nada follows Frank and ends up there. In his travels, I can't remember if it's before or after he meets Frank, he hears a street preacher going on about how they are taking over and how they are your masters and how they're enslaving us. Keep what this man is saying in mind and memorize what he looks like. It's hard to miss him. He's a blind, older black man. Very powerfully done, by the way. I liked the way this actor did it. The actor's name is Raymond St. Jacques. I've not seen him in anything else, but I really liked what he did here. Okay, so Frank takes him to basically a Reaganville, a shanty town near a church, and he introduces him to the community leader, Gilbert, who I believe is played by Peter Jason. Excuse me. Peter Jason is the guy I thought I've seen before. And actually, George Buck Flower, the guy that I thought was this guy, I have seen him before. I just can't. They're both character actors that I'm like, I've seen them before, but I cannot remember where. So hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. So this is, okay, mind you, this is the 80s. So this is 1988. So I don't want to say pre-cable becoming common. This was the era of cable TV becoming common. So there were still a lot of, and nothing was digital. Everything was analog. Everything was over the airwaves. So you could plug a TV out in the middle of nowhere, assuming you had enough juice, and you could get local TV stations. Since this is LA, they obviously had this. So the homeless people are able to watch television. they're watching TV that night, and someone breaks in over the airwaves. Now, again, back in the 80s, this was harder to do than what it is now. Computers have made things so sophisticated, but at the same time, it has streamlined things. So it's easier, I'm guessing, I've never done this, to break into digital broadcasts because of computer linking and everything. Back then, this was hard. So anytime anybody was able to hijack the airways, and it didn't happen on large scales, and what it did, it was news for months. I want to say, I do not remember the date. I know it's the early 80s. I know it was a major city's local station, one or two of them, was hijacked by a group of people, and the person on the visual end, so the person they were filming, had a Max Headroom mask on. So this would probably made it like 85-ish, and he was just goofing off, but they managed to bust in and out a couple times. If you can look this up, it's fascinating. I say that because that's what's happening here. They're watching TV in the homeless camp, and someone takes over the TV broadcasts, alerting humanity that, they're being used as cattle, as slaves, that they are out there, they are, trying to become your overlords. You must wake up. You must break the cycle. Look around you. See. And it breaks in and out and breaks in and out. And the only way to see the light of truth is to shut off the signal at its source. People who watch the broadcast, the break-in, start complaining that they have headaches. So, obviously something is happening here. So, Nod has been at the camp. It seems like a couple of days, and he follows Gilbert and the preacher into the church after a couple of days. He's been kind of watching them, and he sees they're acting a little off. One night he sees the two arguing. He sees Gilbert going into the church at 4 a.m. Now, Gilbert's reasoning is they let us use their kitchen. He's like, at 4 a.m., and he's like, hey, these are a lot of people to feed. So, something that could easily have been explained away, but Nod ain't having it. So he follows the preacher and Gilbert into the church. And instead of, you're hearing all this gospel music and the choir singing, instead of finding a congregation, he finds a bunch of speakers hooked up to a sound system that's playing an album of gospel music, choir music, sorry. Why this is happening is it's covering for the preacher, the guy who's been breaking in the face of the signal. Gilbert and a few other people are having a meeting. They are the resistance to whatever this is. So Nada spies on them, hears a little bit of what they're talking about, decides to cut out. But he finds equipment in boxes inside, and then he runs into the preacher as he's escaping. The preacher warns him, lets him go. And I can't. All this leads up to a police raid where the shantytown and the church are destroyed. Now, this actually, again, people, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this actually used to be a regular thing back in the 80s when we had these Reaganvilles and these shanty towns for this reason. Police would go and break them up because they're undesirable. A lot of these people are just trying to live their lives. They're trying to get back on their feet, and you know, the cops. This is not a rant on all cops are bad, but, you know, they're told to do things by their community leaders. And their community leaders don't always have the best at heart. So that's, you know, that's an unfortunate side effect of rich get richer, poor get poorer side effect. Or it's an unfortunate side effect of a rich get richer, poor get poorer socioeconomic existence. Sorry, this is turning into a little bit of a political rant. But it's kind of hard not to, especially in today's climate with this subject matter. It goes back to my favorite saying, history often repeats itself. So anyway, back to the story. Nada gets one of the boxes from the church, and he finds sunglasses in it. So he takes a pair, he hides the box in a trash pile. When he puts them on, he finds out that it makes the world around him appear monochromatic. So black, white, and gray. But it also reveals subliminal messaging everywhere in the media to consume and conform. So it's on the money. It's on billboards. It's on magazine covers. It's everywhere. It's conform, obey, spend, consume. Sound familiar? The most puzzling reveal to him, though, is some people look normal, and others are ghoulish, bug-eyed aliens hiding under human facades. And it's really funny when he finally figures out what's going on. And he's like insulting this old woman who's one of them. And just listening to what Roddy Piper, like him, it kind of reminded me of him doing his old heel days in the WWF with the insults. It delicious. You also find out during this exchange that the aliens have wristwatch communicators because she's like, I've got one that can see. So, of course, now the word's out. Someone is going to be starting to look for Nada now. It also allows them to teleport and links them to some surveillance drones. So, the police officers show up at the supermarket. They are aliens. They confront Nada. Nada kills them, steals their guns, and enters a bank where he just... This is the most iconic line in media, and everybody gets it wrong. And I'm going to try so hard to get it right. He shows up. He's got the sunglasses on. He's carrying this thing, and he sees that half of the people are aliens, half of the people are real people, and he's like, I have come here to kick ass and chew bubblegum. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Most people reverse that and say, I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And that is the most quoted line from this movie. My husband and I often use it around each other. And it's fucking hilarious. And he delivers it so straight. There's no wink. There's no nod. He's like, I'm here to kick your ass. I'm just going to be quippy about it. So he kills several of them, of the aliens. He leaves, taking a hostage, a human woman named Holly Thompson, so that he can escape. He attempts to get her to put on the glasses after he gets her to take him to her house. She, of course, is one of the wealthier humans. She has a very nice house up in the hills. Big picture windows, whatnot. Well, she manages to catch him in a moment, and she cracks him across the back of the head with a wine bottle. and pushes him out her picture window down into the canyon. So girl's trying to save her own life. He lives and runs off. He left the sunglasses, though. So he ends up going back and retrieves another pair from the trash pile. Frank shows up. He knows Nada's in trouble. He's brought him 1 week's worth of pay from the construction site they both work at, and he's like, stay away from me. You're trouble. I don't want to deal with this. I have a wife and kids in Detroit. I'm trying to figure my life out from here. Nada tries so hard to get him to put these fucking sunglasses on to wake his ass up. It devolves into one of, again, the most iconic, brutal, realistic, this isn't high-flying kicks and, this is two guys beating the shit out of each other in a back alley film fight. This is like this and that line that I just talked about and the reveal of the aliens, three most iconic things out of this movie. This fight was shot for shot redone on an episode of South Park. I cannot remember the name, but it's Timmy and Jimmy and the cripple fight. I hesitate to use those words, but that's what they called it. That was a shot-for-shot remake of the They Live fight. Both Roddy Piper and Keith David, I believe they did all the stunts in this. If not, they did so many of them. Like, they were, like, this close to actually beating the shit out of each other. They said it was a lot of work, but oh my god, the work paid off. This is probably one of my top 10 iconic sci-fi movie scenes, is that fight. They pulled it off so well. The fight ends up with Nada getting Frank to get the sunglasses on, and now Frank's in on it. Frank knows what's going on. So Frank's now in hiding with Nada. The two run into Gilbert, who introduces them to the human resistance. The few people that are involved and know what's going on. They're talking about how to break the signal. They've evolved the technology from the sunglasses to contact lenses now. So they're each given a set of contact lenses, which I really want to know how that works, because everybody's eyes are shaped differently, and you contact lens wearers know this. They've got to measure your eye to get this right. So, but it's the movies. So, anyways, so they're now not wearing sunglasses all the time. They now have contact lenses, and they are constantly aware of what's going on. So they learn about the aliens using global warming to make the Earth's atmosphere feel similar to their home world, while depleting its resources for their own gain. So they're basically parasites. You'll also notice this mimics a lot of other sci-fi from the era of V. The aliens from V and V: The Final Battle, the miniseries, were here to exploit Earth's resources as well. They also learned that there are humans collaborating with the aliens because the aliens are bribing them and making them very wealthy. And, of course, money talks and people are easily bought. It's just the way human beings are, apparently. Holly's at the meeting. She brings information about where the signal may be coming from because she works for the cable company. So they're like, okay. So she apologizes to Nada for almost killing him, claiming she didn't know what was going on. Unfortunately, the meeting is raided by the police, and the majority of those present are killed. Survivors are scattered. Nada and Frank are cornered in an alley, but Frank manages to grab an alien wristwatch and activate it, and it opens up a portal, and they jump in. They end up at the aliens' spaceport, on Earth under the Cable 54 station, which is an alien-run news network. There's a meeting, a banquet, so to give you an idea of how fancy this is, of human collaborators and the aliens. They're celebrating their defeat of the human resistance. They're approached by a guy from the shanty town. He's now a collaborator. He's all done up in a tux and all that. He mistakes them for new recruits and gives them a tour of the facility. He seems to think everything with those two are fine, even though they're still in their work clothes and everyone else is dressed to the nines. Not exactly the smartest idiot. They find where the aliens broadcast the signal that prevents the humans from identifying them. It's part of the mental blocking. It blocks the blocks the blatant use of subliminal messages and allows the subliminal, I can't even talk today, subliminal messaging to happen. So there's a whole mess of things that happens. They meet back up with Holly. They end up on the roof at the transmitter. And they're getting ready to blow it up. And then you find out Holly's a collaborator and she's known all along. And she basically was there to infiltrate. She's the one responsible for the raid. And she shoots Frank. So Nada kills her. And he blows the transmitter, but he's wounded. He's going to die. With the signal shut down, Nada gives him the middle finger as he dies. And that's the end of Nada. When the signal stops, everybody wakes up. And you start seeing little pockets of it at the close of the movie. There's a guy in a bar watching. Well, there's people in a bar. They're watching TV. And all of a sudden you realize one of the guys on the TV that's talking. Ironically, he calls out George Romero and Jon Carpenter for making bad movies. He's an alien. You flash to the bar. There's an alien sitting at the bar. The very last shot is there's a woman who's very obviously in the middle of the nookie. And she looks so bored, like, what the fuck are you even putting the energy in for? But two, she finally opens her eyes and looks down, and the guy she's having relations with is one of them. And he looks up and is like, baby, what's wrong? And that's the last shot of the movie. Then we go into the credits. This is a really good film. This, like I said, is one of my top This and The Thing are always my two favorite Jon Carpenter films to watch. Now, Carpenter has said that the film's political commentary, I'm reading notes straight from Wikipedia here, so. Film's political commentary derives from the dissatisfaction with then U.S. President Ronald Reagan's economic policies, also known as Reaganomics. And what Carpenter viewed as increasing commercialization in both popular culture and politics of the era. Carpenter remarked, the picture's premise is that the Reagan Revolution is run by aliens from another galaxy. Free enterprisers from outer space have taken over the world and are exploiting Earth as if it's a third world planet. As soon as they exhaust all of our resources, they'll move on to another world. I began watching TV again. I quickly realized that everything we see is designed to sell us something. It's all about wanting us to buy something. The only thing they want to do is take our money. To this end, Carpenter thought of sunglasses as being the tool of seeing the truth, which is seen in black and white. It's as if the aliens have colonized us. That means, of course, that Ted Turner is really a monster from outer space. The director commented on the alien threat in an interview. They want to own all of our businesses. A Universal executive asked me, what's the threat in that? We all sell out every day. I ended up using that line in the film. The aliens were deliberately made to look like ghouls, according to Carpenter, who said, the creatures are corrupting us, so they themselves are corruptions of human beings. I mean, now, with the way things are nowadays, it feels like this applies as well. I mean, we're constantly getting bombarded with ads. You can't play a game on your phone without getting an ad just thrown in the middle. I'm sure that there's ads in front of my videos, and I don't, I'm not affiliated with anybody. TV feels like it's 90% ads. Radio feels like it's 90% ads, unless you're paying for the premium services or the ad blockers or whatnot. You're bombarded with ads every day. Your phone is constantly listening and putting ads in articles you're trying to read. If it was bad then, it's worse now. And, let's face it, it feels like the people driving our government are really only out for themselves. I don't care what side of the line they're on. So rewatching this movie now I understand the adults during the Reaganomics years. So I'm going to try to keep the politics down. You can't really take it out of this film discussion, but I'm going to try and keep it down a little bit. And this is coming from somebody who considers themselves working poor level. No matter what me and my peers do, we're constantly working, and it just doesn't feel like we're ever catching up. So, but yeah, this was a really good film. I'm gonna say that this and They Live jogged for my top place in Jon Carpenter films. I have not done too many Jon Carpenter films on this channel yet. That will be remedied eventually. Also, look out, I'm slowly starting to get playlists together here on the channel of stuff that I've uploaded. The goal is eventually, I know for sure right now I have Christmas, and I have Ted Raimi films. I'm going to try and once I start getting enough of a variety, director-led or genre-led, my classic Universal Monsters when I get more of those up. So keep an eye out for playlists to pop up if you're into that. But I just want to thank everybody for being on this journey with me. It's just nice to be able to get my point of view out. I've got lots of great stuff coming up, some newer stuff, some older stuff. Again, I'm always taking suggestions, so use those comments, guys. But in the meantime, They Live, 1988, Jon Carpenter, brilliant masterpiece. I highly suggest watching it, especially again with the socioeconomic mess that we find ourselves in now. It's great escapist filmmaking. And again, congratulations to Jon Carpenter, who recently finally got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. If I remember correctly, I saw that Kurt Russell and Keith David were actually at the ceremony there as well. So good on you. And again, you guys, thanks for watching. Good night, my creeplings, and I'll see you next time. Bye.